indigenous Muskegee people to seriously consider migrating. Derived from Spanish, a new label emerges for the Muskegee people who have been entering Florida. Wild rogues, Seminoles. In 1775, the American Revolution begins. British manipulate the Seminoles into becoming obstacles for the approaching American troops. The unforeseen violence spares Loyalist lives in the South. The escalating bloodshed between U.S. troops and Seminoles concerns General Nathaniel Greene. 1776, the following year, General Greene proves the local militarization of Florida wildlife. He names his war animals minute fauna. They are trained to strike lethally at a moment's notice. Despite heavy losses, the Seminoles endure. In 1783, 8 years later, the American Revolution ends. Spain repopulates Florida. To promote settlement, the Spanish approved land grants for many, including displaced indigenous peoples, escaped enslaved Americans, defeated British loyalists. During this era of Pax Hispanica, Spanish peace, the Seminoles find and destroy the remaining minute fauna. the Seminoles innovate. Meanwhile, the Seminoles continue to shelter escaped American slaves. 1913, while stationed at the southern border, General Andrew Jackson is angered by the Seminole protection of escapees. 1816, 3 years later, Jackson invades Florida. The resulting wars are hellish. No U.S. soldier is prepared for combat in the swamps. The presence of Minnetonka fuels escalation on both sides. These are the same Florida skies that the dead last saw. was a frightening game of cosmic bingo. Even today, though now in a state of uncertain hibernation. During the American Civil War, various methods of conscription were tested for utmost randomness. And while the lottery involving balls and wheels became most popular in the 20th century, a drawing of sticks was seriously considered by 19th century Americans. Special effigies were constructed to facilitate the process back then. These paper people exist today in a state of uncertain hibernation.
February 14th. February 14th is 004.
Listening to melody, every man becomes his own poet and measures the depths of his own nature.
These are the same skies that the dead last saw.
searched all over the north for the perfect tree. I had received word that 4 options existed deep in Florida. The first was much too short. The second was far too tall. The third was certainly unremarkable in all the most ordinary ways. Perhaps it is my curse, forever bound to the pursuit. It was just after this thought that I had first heard his song.
established tonight a random selection sequence for induction for 1970. Because of the CBS News special report which follows, Mayberry RFD will not be presented tonight, but will return next week at its regularly scheduled time over most of these stations. The Draft Lottery, a live report on tonight's picking of the birthdays for the draft.
And here's the Norelco Santa with some new ways to say Merry Christmas. Give the Norelco triple header with a cord or in a rechargeable model. Give the inexpensive Flip Top 20 or the new battery cordless. Norelco, even our name says Merry Christmas.
These are the same skies that the dead last saw. to proceed or forced to concede behind bars. Victory or death seemed to be the motto. For years there had been rumors of an irreversible escape route in Manhattan. Not just an exit from the States, but an exit from this whole wide world of war. When I realized what I had to do, I felt incapable of staying conscious. But in my dreams, I realized I had to find Rockefeller's mystery exit.
I didn't know her very well. She was quiet, silent mostly, and she liked to eat apples on the porch. We sat together there all the time, but kept to ourselves. Well, she did. You know how if Mama or Papa asks, "Hey, honey, how's school?" you go blank and just say, "It was good," or "It was okay," or "It was fine." It frustrates parents to no end, but because she was such a vacuum, I just had to tell her everything. And she listened and smiled, and she treated me right this way. She really kept an ear out, but I just had to talk about every little crush or bully. I'd even yap about all the animals I'd see over the fence. I used to play soccer after school, and she'd bring her apples and notebook and watch, just like how I watch little Lauren today when she plays with her team. But you know, every once in a long while, Mama had to say something. Sometimes she just couldn't bear to keep herself a secret anymore. I remember this one late night. She was on the porch, holding some papers in her hand. No apples anywhere, and she was completely still. So I thought that she fell asleep with her notebook. The papers had some childish drawings of happy people, and I was just going to put them aside. The moment I touched those drawings, she got up, fast, yelling, and loud too. It was just one of those few times I remember. "Maya, stay back." Those words always. "Maya, stay back." She always felt real sorry after and apologized. That night in particular was the first it happened, so I was a little shocked, but I soon knew that she would always sit back down. She never wanted to insult anyone for long. Back in her chair, she told me that ever since she was little, she knew she was in the wrong place. Not the wrong town or country, I mean the whole world was wrong for her. The earth, the universe. It was all backwards from what she knew, and the funny thing is, I believed her. Totally, from the first word. But the reason I still believe is because She pressed my hand against her chest. She teased, "Do you know what's wrong, Maya?" And I was a smart girl. I knew. The heartbeat was on the wrong side. It sounded off, too. She said something switched her out. She told me more later, and maybe I'll tell you. But what's important is that she always believed she was just plain old unlucky, and that this was just how her life was supposed to go. That's just wrong. That wasn't fair for her. And I think she kept to herself and stayed quiet so that she could stay here. She didn't want to like it did when she was young. I think that made talking to me more valuable to her. We both felt we were outside of the rest of the world, and that could change at any moment. Together, outside of a bubble, always an understanding between us. Maybe because a little bit of that old world passed down to me. I always knew I had to be careful, but not too careful. I could go play soccer and get in trouble because we knew I was already affected. My heart, it's always been in the middle of me. Fate's funny, too.
Vask E. Dorian. That's right. Good. You're awake. I'm uncertain of how much your experience you remember, or whether you understand the condition you're presently in, but what do you remember?
Eternity underground.
Yes, interesting. We have similar reports coming in from other draft dodgers. I will be the first to inform you that, more likely than not, you have developed false, fantastical memories under deeply distressing circumstances. To be a young man like yourself, on the run, being pursued in your own country, the mind can only take so much before it resorts to pure fantasy. I will believe what you experienced, Dorian, but it is not, as you might call it, objective reality. However, I sympathize with you, and I'm glad you've fallen into the right hands. Good hands. At least mine are steady. My brain would have insulated itself in its imagination the same way as yours, had I been in your place, Dorian.
It was real.
I believe that the physical effects of your transformation deeply impaired your sense of time and direction. We've made estimates, but we haven't fully evaluated the damage to your own sense of self. What we do know is that you remain very disoriented. We don't know the full extent, but you could very well be in a hallucinatory state at this moment. There are many medications in you that are taking the pain off your shoulders, but also inducing a kind of severe inebriation.
Everything.
Yes, I know. You must be in a lot of it too. Yes, everything must hurt, I know. I want to give you your diagnosis and a few questions before REM sleep. Is that acceptable to you?
No. No choice.
I know, Fate. Dorian, we've determined that you have AWS. Don't ask how we got that name, because frankly, its origin sounds like it may have come out of alternate American folklore, which is baseless. But the science does show this. Your anatomy has been stretched to near impossible limits, definitive human limits. But we managed to isolate your vital organs and retain a significant portion of skin, bone, and muscle. A lot is missing, and you are going to look very different from this day forth, Dorian. People will not recognize you like before, and the public at large will generally, well, they will see you as a stranger, Dorian. Inevitably, some will not even understand you. Here, we want to make this transition as easy as possible for you.
Easy.
Yes. We have a variation of the witness protection program here at the hospital. You're at the Walt Disney Center in D.C., by the way. Many of our AWS patients here have chosen new names as part of their first step in their journeys. Would you be open to that? What name would you like me to write from now on?
Middle name.
Dorian E. Vask. Let's see.
Everett.
That's right. Thank you. Everett.
Now, please, get me to
branch operation with major American oversight. Bill Clinton, wanted us down there for political leverage. He called the whole thing an Indian Cold War, and this region our sacred battleground. I personally don't believe it's the president's responsibility to stay politically correct, but it sure made it inconvenient for the rest of us at the time. The media did not enjoy that label one bit, especially that word, Indian. Suddenly we were in some mighty uncomfortable interviews with the press. He really should have called it something else, but it was the 90s, and it was Bill. Folks over at DOT had a real nice nickname for him. We'll keep that off the tape. But one thing he did take seriously was the locals. He really took them at their word. He was nice like that. Sometimes. Hell, it was his command to establish an archival team to research their belief system for any more info on the jester. He wanted this TFMD under his control, in and out. Bill believed their story about it being the jester's home. I didn't. None of us did. I think we all came to our wits when the submersible found the ship. Then it all clicked. There were records between Columbus and now that we clearly hadn't gotten our hands on. But by then, it was too late. Test was underway. Who knew it'd feed the damn thing? Bill told me a little story about why the jester is named the jester, about being the entertainer on a ship or whatever. I think it's called the ship jester because it makes a fool out of everybody. Out of humanity. Damn things made the world a big joke. Sometimes the research is so surreal that I struggle to keep a firm grip on this reality. And my heart knows that. It's faster when I'm working, and I'll sometimes get those little stabs in your chest from anxiety. It does a number on me. I can only drink the coffee that the Cathanauts make once in a while. Otherwise, I'll toast, space out, and need a day off. So instead of coffee, I go to Mama. Thinking about Mama grounds me best. I keep a lot of her things around my office. I have a stuffed bear of hers in my backpack here right now, actually. It's one of her favorites.
We weren't afraid at first. We all had this unspoken assumption that these anomalies were temporary and insignificant. We were numb to even the TFMDs since, more often than not, nothing serious came of them. Nothing public, as Bill used to say. At least at first. Then the jester started writing messages on the rocks. And that's when we started getting, scared. We all had independently come to a few comfortable conclusions about life. About the irreplaceable intelligence of human beings and our unique emotional system. Then, we were confronted with someone with more knowledge and pain than anybody could ever imagine. The jester's life story is deeply intermingled with human history, with the history of each and every one of us. I don't want to disclose names because we're still verifying the identities that comprise the jester. But wow. There was a shift in the team after the first message. Now there's a new conclusion we have all come to. Every single anomaly was, is, always will be significant, consequential. Every single TFMD, because it's all connected, and it always, always goes back to us. Like Mama said, we are the anomalies.
Afternoon. Today in New York, the United Nations General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to adopt the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and open it for signature later this month.
All nuclear powers don't sign the agreement. There were 3 votes against the resolution.
There were the Indians, and I believe we can find a way for the Indians to have their security concerns met.
Challenges the firm international consensus to stop all nuclear testing. So again, I ask to join the 149 other nations that have already signed the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty.
Never to scene.